Hey, welcome to Thoughtful Thursday. This is your host, Mae Renfroe, and I'm excited to be here again with another guest. And I'm excited for all of you that will hear this when it comes out. And I have Tanya Manley on with me today. So just big welcome, Tanya. And I'm excited what you're going to share with us. You're a fellow mom of child loss like myself. And so, I'm very sorry for that, for your loss, and that we have this in common. But I'm also excited what you're going to share because you have hope and encouragement for others. And you're helping those now that are in the same journey on the same journey that we are. So I really like that. And so, yeah, I'm excited for what you have to share for us, Tanya. And you can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on this platform. I think what you're doing is just as wonderful as well. And so I'm excited to be here to be able to share my story. So, yes, you're correct. I am a bereaved mother. I have lost two children. Very quite differently. I lost a son. He was stillborn 10 years
Mm,
ago. Easton Michael, and that was a very devastating loss. My husband hadn't had any children. I was remarried, and we really wanted to become parents. And I really wanted him to be a dad because I just knew he was going to be a great father. And so that was very devastating. But
mm,
God always has a plan. So 20 days after we lost Easton, 10 years ago, we got a phone call that there was a little boy that needed a place immediately. And we had 24 hours and one photo to say yes. And at that time, I was, yes, at that time, I was still, it's amazing. At that time, I was really still in my grief and my mourning. And I looked at my husband and I said, what do you want to do? Because I'm still grieving
okay.
our son. But,
Yeah.
and he said, we can't question God's plan. This is to be our son, and we are to save him from this situation. And we went and picked him up, and we were an instant family. I always tell the story. He was 13 months old. And you would think that when a stranger would come and pick up a 13-month-old child, that they would be
Mm-hmm.
cautious or scared or cry. He didn't
Mm-hmm.
cry. He went to us the minute that we got there, and we were an instant family, bonded like I there's no words. They're really at a young age. I had my first son at 16, almost 17 years old. And I come from a very tough upbringing. My being seizures. I'm hallucinating. I really don't know what's going on. And I said, just go to sleep. You're gonna be okay. Let's pray about it. I was out of town and I was gonna come the next day to pick him
Mm-hmm.
up and bring him to my house. Even though he was 30, he was still my baby.
Yeah. Oh,
And
okay. Good.
so, yeah. And so I got a call the next morning from his father, and
Mm-hmm.
his roommate had found him. He had passed away in his sleep.
Mm-hmm.
And that was a totally different type of grief than losing my baby because I had spent 30 of my 47 years being his mother, right? I
Uh,
was there for
yeah.
every bump, every
Yeah.
bruise, every scrape, every heartbreak,
Yeah.
everything in life.
Yeah.
So, and to lose him, so, to talk to him one night on the phone and then the next morning to get that call, my brain just really couldn't comprehend what was going on. A lot of things, started happening in my brain. And I remember I got on the phone with the investigator and he told me, we don't know really what's going on right now. We just know that, your son passed away between this time and this time. So
Mm-hmm.
also that was also in the midst of COVID. So
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I
Yeah.
had to wait 7 months to get the autopsy back to find out exactly what happened to my son. And that was torture. That was
Yeah.
really, really a tough time for me. Just not having the answers, we want all we want to know is what happened. So we got the interest back. He actually died of a brain aneurysm that was
Oh,
undetected, in the hospital. And so, you know, when you first go through those first couple of days and months, you're just kind of like in a fog, and you just really just like, is this my reality?
yeah.
And I've always been a very spiritual person. I've always relied on God, for my answers and my life and everything that He's got
Mhm.
pulled me through. And I would remember sitting in my profound, gut wrenching pain,
Mm.
asking God, like, I can't wake up in this kind of pain anymore. I don't know how to do life like this. I still
Mhm.
have I have a grown son. I have a son that's young. I have, my husband. I have grandchildren. I have to heal. I have to get out of this somehow. And I remember God specifically saying, you're going to heal, and then you're going to go back for the others that are going to come after you, and you're going to show them the way.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So
Jesus. Okay.
that's really when I began to sit still and really think about how I could honor my children, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
how I could help others and tell the stories of how we can live again, and how grief and joy and grief and happiness can coexist together,
Yeah.
right? Because in
Yeah.
the beginning you don't feel like that, and you don't have any vision of how you're going to get to that point. You just know that you
Yeah.
don't want to be in that pain any longer.
Yeah.
So, my son had wrote a post back in 2016. He was a very deep thinker, and he wrote a post that basically said, this morning I looked at the sunset and I spent some time with God, and I realized that the most beautiful things in life are here in 1 minute and gone the next. And if
Oh,
I'm ever not, yes, and if I'm ever not here, and if you ever wonder if I love you, I will always love you. I will always be with you, and look to me in the sunset. That
oh,
always gets
wow.
me. Every time I say that, it
Yeah.
always gets me.
Oh, yeah.
So as I was looking through his post, and I sat on that post and I said, God, you know, what do I do? And that's when I started the podcast Sunset Stories. That's where the name comes from.
Mm. Okay.
Because, yeah, so that's where the name comes from, and the meaning behind it, and how I honor them. And so, what Sunset Stories is about finding other people that have, you know, moved through and moved forward the unimaginable,
Yeah.
through their faith, through God, through, trusting in God's word, and showing the ones that are going to come after us that it is possible. You know,
Mhm.
the stories are pretty heavy. I mean,
Yeah.
there's some stories that, they watched their children die. There's children died in
Mhm.
front of them. I mean, they're
Mhm.
pretty heavy. And people ask me, all the time, are they heavy for you? Yeah, sure, they're heavy, but I have to keep my focus on what God said to me, was that these stories will be catalysts, they will be lights in other people's darkness. So
Mhm.
someone will be out there listening that will hear this story and say, well, if she survived losing two children, or if they survived,
Yeah.
seeing their child pass or whatever, then I have hope that I can too, you know?
Yeah.
And that's the whole purpose
Oh,
of the podcast is, I believe our children's stories and our loved ones' stories need to be recorded, and
yeah.
recorded in our memory and our narrative. A lot of these, our children leave behind children. So we want our children to hear, our grandchildren to hear the stories, and their grandchildren to hear the stories. And the other thing that I was hoping to accomplish with the podcast is to try to educate the public on how to treat
Mhm.
grieving parents. Because I think we both can
Okay.
agree that there needs to be a lot of work in that area,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
So that's what I do, and then it moved into partnering with a another bereaved mother. We have a online program that is completely
Mm-hmm.
free that we do every Tuesday night at 7 Central Standard Time. It's
Mm-hmm.
called The Price of Love. And Paula and
Yeah.
I facilitate that with other bereaved parents from all over the United States, Canada. We've had some from South Africa,
Okay.
Australia,
Oh, wow.
and yeah, and
Yeah.
we choose topics, and we have guest speakers, and we have authors, and we have coaches, and we have resources for those bereaved parents, should they choose to want to have those resources. And then the third step that we've taken is Paula has a foundation in honor of her son, Austin Sunshine Foundation. Both of our sons died of motorcycle accidents, very young ages, in their young 20s.
Oh. Yeah.
And so we actually meet locally in person and do life with other bereaved parents in the Dallas Fort Worth area. And our hopes is that we can have a chapter in every state so that other parents that aren't with us locally can experience that. We just get together, we fellowship, we eat, we tell stories of our children, we bring pictures, we love on each other, we listen to each other.
Yeah.
And that's sponsored by Paula's Foundation. And so that's what we do. And we both actually
Oh.
just got
Yeah.
and we both actually just got our um, certified grief coach and life coach certifications. So,
Oh,
this
okay.
is now our purpose. Our children have given us
Yeah.
another purpose in life, and it's to move forward and walk with others that need it, and whatever that may look like.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I really like that, what you're doing now. Just all that you just shared. So a few things I was gonna, yeah, mention about. I like the in-person gathering. I was curious about that because I've seen that actually posted on Facebook, the in-person. I was like, what does that look like? What if I could do something like
Yeah,
that too, kind of in my area and stuff, and how that would look like.
it's
That'd be
awesome
really
because so
neat.
what we do is we just do it in a different part of the the city, because
Yeah.
DFW is pretty big.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we just have someone, we've been doing it at homes. Someone volunteers their home, and then we meet and we eat, and like I said, we fellowship. And there's just an unspoken bond between a bereaved a bereaved
Yeah.
parent and another bereaved parent. We really don't have to
Yeah.
say much. We know, what that other person needs, and they really just
Yeah.
need, a grieving parent or grieving person really just needs you to hold space with them.
Yeah.
They really just they don't need you to fix it. You can't fix it, but just to do life with other people that have gone through that type of profound grief and trauma, and see how well somebody else is doing down the line, or
Yeah.
talk to them about what's works for them, what may not work, and just really just love on them and see them and support them in however we can. That's
Oh,
that's what
wow.
we do.
That's
Yeah,
neat. So it's like community. So it's not
it's
like a meeting. So
community.
I was wondering if somebody's officiating, like it's a meeting, like you're giving information, but not necessarily you're just coming together and you're just like a listening ear or just supporting, just kind of like we're here for you. And that way then they can probably
Yeah.
ask questions and maybe say what they're going through
Yes.
too, right? To you. So, oh
Exactly. And
wow,
we can,
that's
how can we
special.
support you this month?
Yeah,
Do you have any, dates that are coming up, angel versaries or birthdays, or, how can we pray for you this month? Are there going to be any hard days coming up for you where we really need to reach out to you a little more? Just, it's a more private, intimate
yeah,
community.
yeah,
But I think everybody needs that. And it's really been so healing for all of us, because, some of us are
yeah.
not even a year into it. Some of us are
Oh wow,
five
yeah,
years. Some of us are, I'm in year two and a half. And it's just really refreshing to see, you know, that we can get through this.
yeah,
God does not give us anything that we can't handle. It may not feel like that in the beginning, and that's okay. But to just know that, to be able to look at, someone next to you and know that they have gone through the unimaginable, and they're still here, and they're still living and thriving, and it's just a beautiful thing, really
Yeah.
is.
Yeah, and it's really powerful for yourself, right? And so then for the others, so that you can be there for the others too. Because I know that for myself, right after losing our son, our 14-year-old son in 2017, and knowing of others that had, already walked that journey ahead of us. And yeah, it was really neat just to be in their presence, or just being able to
Mhm.
hear from them, and see that, yeah, they are, going on in life does go on, and that you can have joy and hope again. And that's one thing that I really felt. Right up, I felt the peace of God, like, immediately. I was around this peace I can't even begin to describe. It was so special, that peace, and just communing with God. And I felt there was a purpose in it too, right at the beginning. But joy is one thing. I was wondering if I would have joy again. I really was like, am I ever gonna, like, laugh again and not feel guilty for it? Because I would, like, sometimes something did make me laugh, but I was like, oh no, I can't laugh. I can't do that. I felt, and so I was like, can I
Yes.
laugh and really feel good about it? Can I have joy again? So
And
that's kind of what you were talking
I'm
about.
glad you brought that up, because we have been focusing on what we call good grief. And people are
Okay.
like, well, good grief, what do you mean by that?
Yeah.
Well, if you can change your mindset, like for me now, I've changed my mindset too. I'm thankful to God for the 30 years that he gave me with CJ, right? For all the memories, all the photos, all everything that we did. I can go now to buy his favorite ice cream at the grocery store without falling apart, or I can
Yeah.
go to his favorite place to eat, because I
Mhm.
can shift my mind into the good
Yeah.
grief of, I got to be his mom. God
Yeah.
chose me.
Yeah.
He doesn't promise that we have them here forever, eternally. He promises that in heaven. And so it takes a while to get there, because initially, of course, we want them here with us, and we couldn't have imagined. But yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that, because we talked about that last night on our Zoom, that sometimes you feel like while you're healing, and you know that you're healing because you're experiencing joy,
Mhm.
but it kind of feels like you're leaving them behind. And
Yeah.
that's not at all how it is. You want to live a life to honor them, to live
Mhm.
for them, and to laugh for them, and to have joy for them, because I know my son, and he would want me to be happy. He wouldn't
Yeah.
want me to be crying every day, and in bed. Although there's days that I have done that, and that's okay
Yeah.
too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think the peace that I feel now, 2.5 years into it, the connection that I know that I still have to my son, he always lives in my heart and my soul, and the promise from God that I will see him again.
Mhm.
That's what I hold on to. But you're so right. And it confuses people too, when they see you might post a picture and you're happy and you're out, and they're like, oh, well, she's
Mhm.
fine now. And that doesn't mean that. It just
No.
means that I had a moment where
Yeah.
I was living and letting life in, and I was enjoying it.
And that we have a right to be able to do that. Yeah. But it can,
Yes.
feel hard. I know there's things that we did, like, for the first time after losing our son, that I found really hard, especially if it's things that I know he'd like to do. He was 14 at the time, so different things. We were on a trip, when we were in Canada at the time, going back to our Texas home, and just knowing that he did prefer the Texas home more than here, this one. So going back without him was really hard. Going back without him, knowing that he would have liked that, and say being at the pool, on our trip, it's a motel pool for the first time without him. That was a big thing. He loved that, and so that was hard. It would be like, almost like we shouldn't be doing it. Like, how can we
Yes.
be doing this without him? It took a
Yeah.
bit to process, to realize now. I mean, farther down the road, there's things that I'll realize. Oh, Clayton would have loved this, but then it's with a different kind of a feeling. He would have loved it, and it's fine that we're doing this, instead
Yeah,
of
I think that's such
the
a good
opposite.
point to bring up. That is such a good point to bring up, because so many people early in their grief feel that way. And then there's so much pressure. Well, what am I supposed to do? Am I supposed to have
Yeah.
this grandiose thing on his birthday? Am I supposed to already have cleaned out his room? And there's no right or wrong to that. I mean, grief really is. as individual as your fingerprint, right? Like
Yeah.
it's your journey and your journey alone. And no one can really tell you, or no one should tell you how to do it. All we can do is just offer suggestions and resources and things that have worked for us. But I think for me, what has been the biggest thing is time has been my biggest teacher, right?
Mm-hmm.
The more time that goes on, that I know that he's in a better place, I know
Mm-hmm.
that he's with Jesus, that
Mm-hmm.
gives me such peace. And I don't think he would want to come back here even if he could,
Yeah,
he's
that's the thing,
exactly
right?
where, yeah, he's exactly where we all want to be. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I think it's important to realize that that took time for me to get there, you know,
Hmm.
and everybody's journey is different.
Yeah, it's going to take time. So we need to be easy on ourselves, and that's why I try to help others. They need to be just be easy on yourself. Don't try to rush this process, but take your time to grieve, but to grieve well. I get, and but don't try to rush it, and don't let other people try to rush it or tell you that you
Well,
should be
because
over it
society,
because
yeah,
you go through it, but not over it necessarily. Yeah.
because society tries to rush us through it, right? Because it's really uncomfortable for them. Because I think
Yeah.
we're living, everybody's worst nightmare. And we understand that too, because before it happened to us, it was our worst
Hmm.
nightmare as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I feel like, they want you to hurry up because they don't know what to say, right? They
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
education. And then if they do say something, they're afraid they're gonna, make you cry. And like what I always tell people is the biggest thing that a grieving parent wants is for their child to not be forgotten, right?
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
yes, say his name. It may make me cry for a minute, but that's okay. You're remembering that my child lived, and that's so special to me. That
Yeah.
is so important to me. And so I think that's super important to educate people that are know people that are grieving, particularly in child loss, because it's right, it's not normal, it's not the normal order of life.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
they're supposed to be on our deathbed holding our hand, not the opposite. And so it's very taboo, and people, don't talk about it because it's very uncomfortable. But it's our real life. And so I think it's our job to educate people on how to help us through it. And like you said, time. And then the other word that I hear myself saying all the time is grace. Give us some grace
Hmm.
and give us some compassion,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because we're thrown into this life that is just um, so foreign to us and changes everything about us. And we
Hmm.
need time and grace and support through it. That's what we need. And we need love.
Yeah.
But love is bigger than grief.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. For sure. And yeah, realizing that people that haven't been through it just
and sympathy and support. You're right. If they've never lost a child, they cannot comprehend. Of course, it would be they think that we're grieving too long. But my answer to that is I had him for 30 years. I can't stop talking about him in a year or
yeah.
two,
Yeah.
you know? So
Yeah.
if you
We,
think
and
about it that way,
we don't have to. That
and we're
was,
not going to.
they're always a part of our lives. I know they're not here, but they're always a part of our lives and a part of who we are. Um,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
get
They live in our
cherish
heart
that.
and soul
Yeah.
forever. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, that's nice. I just really like that what you said, and um, yeah, I have to realize to just been trying to be nice to others that don't understand. Like you said, and it's been a journey. But now when I finally get it, yeah, they haven't walked through that. So sometimes things that I'm doing differently. Now, just kind of like you said, you have a different purpose now from this, and the things you're doing to help others. Someone else may not understand it, wonder why you doing these things. Well, if you they haven't experienced like child loss, no, is like that, then they don't understand. And that's why I've kind of got that. Sometimes I felt maybe for my family, different things, just wondering why am I doing what I'm doing? Do I not have enough things to do already? I'm like, yeah, but it's from that place that I just really, really want to help others. And uh, because I know what it's
Yeah.
like, and I want to be there and give support and encouragement. And
Yeah, and that's why I love so much what you're doing because it exactly aligns along with, what I experienced when I first went through the journey. I couldn't find anybody that was talking about it. I couldn't
Mhm.
find anybody that wanted to talk about it. Your support kind of, after the weeks and, after the funeral, your support kind of dissipates and
Yeah,
everybody goes
yeah,
back to life and you're seeing everybody go back to normal life on social media and you're like, how is everybody going back to life? My child is gone. And so it's a
yeah,
very confusing
yeah.
time for a grieving parent.
It is.
And you've got to find your people. You've got to
Yeah,
find your people. And I thank God for my grief community and my grief family is what I call
yeah,
them because without them, I don't think I would be doing as well as I am today.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. God knows we need that. That's right. That's
And he
part of
aligns those
his
people
plan.
in your life for a reason.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
exactly. Exactly.
yeah. And he wants us, to seek him too more, not try to do this on our own, but to really to call out to him. And I know I've really grown in my relationship, and I'm sure you have too, right? Because you suddenly are like
Yes.
everything that you may have trusted in, or just feeling like, oh, life is good, and then suddenly it's not, and so then you really got to fall back on God
Yeah, and I
or
think it's our
be
job
on
as
Him.
Christians. Yeah, and I think it's just our job as Christians because so many, when they do lose a child, they're upset with God. Their faith is
Mhm.
shaken. And I think it's important for us to understand that that's a process for some people
Yeah,
and
yeah,
to let them know that, God even understands, right?
yeah,
And he's there waiting for you, you know, and we can show them through our Christianity that, he has pulled me through the darkest of times. He was the only one that was there for me 24/7, wanting me to call on him and use this pain for a greater purpose.
yeah.
And it was very clear to me what I needed to do. It didn't, it was, God was very clear. Um, Yes, he spoke very clearly to me on what I needed to do, and I have not looked back since. And, I love what I do now. I love that I get to wake up and have conversations with like minded people and people that have the same common goal as you and I,
Yeah,
we just want to help others. That's what
yeah,
we want. That's why we're doing this.
yeah, yeah. Oh wow, that's really special. And did you feel like this purpose right at the beginning when you lost him, or were you really like I don't know, just really
Um,
thrown for a while,
in the
like,
begin,
or did you
if
feel
I'm
it at
being
some point?
if I'm being honest, in the very beginning, I was in shock, you know.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
I was in shock. And I think everybody can understand that. And then
hmm
I just took
yeah,
some time to go inward and be with God because I knew that what was going on in my mind and my body that I couldn't understand it because it's a very confusing time and grief can do a lot to your mind and
hmm
your body. But
hmm
it wasn't
hmm
very long. It wasn't very long after. It was a few months that I was a business owner and I told my husband, we are selling the business, we are selling the house, we are moving back home to Dallas, and I'm going to start this, this, and this. And he's like,
hmm
okay. you know, I'm like, God has told me this. And he's like, okay. Thank God,
yeah,
thank God I have a supportive husband and he's
yeah,
always been wonderful about what I needed to do, whatever I needed to
yeah,
do to heal. And I think it's
yeah,
important to point out that this really heals me too,
yeah,
right? So being
yeah,
around other people, helping them tell these stories, aligning myself with people like you, it helps me heal. It opens up a whole nother world of people that God wanted me to be aligned with. And I love that.
yeah, yeah. So it's special that,
It
that how
is.
you want to be help others so we are can receive that same help and healing ourselves. Um, I was wondering, could I ask kind of how your husband is doing and through all this and like
You
that
know,
aspect.
he's and thank you for asking about that. You know, CJ was not he was not CJ's biological father, but he was in
Okay.
CJ's life for 15
Yeah.
years. I remarried him. But
Okay.
when we first lost Easton, which was his biological child, um, you know, he of course was devastated. And then he said that he felt like he had to show up more for me, you know, because the mother is, you know, more devastated. And that really broke my heart because sometimes I think we forget about the dads, you
Yeah.
know, and
Yeah.
the dads are hurting too and they grieve differently. He has been amazing this whole time. I could not speak at CJ's funeral, of course, so he spoke for me, and there was not a dry eye. There was not a dry eye in the house,
Yeah.
um, because he always says that one of the reasons why he wanted to marry me was needed to cry, scream, stay in bed for 2 days, start a podcast, you know, do whatever. He
Yeah.
has been really supportive. And, you know, one of the reasons why I married him was when I met him, his faith in God was so strong. And I wanted that. I wanted
Yeah.
to be where he was with God, and I wanted to be led by a man of God and have a man of God of our household. He's doing wonderful. We bring CJ up all the time. We bring Easton up all the time.
Yeah.
They are part of our everyday lives and conversation. You know, our son that's adopted knows the whole story, and he brings them up all the time. As a matter of fact, our son, he took a part of Easton's birthday and a part of CJ's birthday, and he plays.
That is the hope then that gives you strength to to carry on for each day, each moment at a time. I love
Yeah.
that, and I mean I can say that's exactly how it was for us. That's the hope that kept us going. Um,
Yeah, you've got to hold on to hope. If you don't have hope, it's going to be a bumpy ride, and it's going to be a bumpy ride anyways. Grief is a very tricky thing, and sometimes it'll sneak up on you when you least expect it. And what I've learned over these past 2.5 years is the only way through it is through it, right? And what I mean
mm,
by that is that
mhm.
you have to feel those feels and you have to ride those waves of grief, and then you just get back up and you go do the dishes or you go do whatever it is that you need to do. But each time that you get back up from that wave, you will find that you're stronger. And
Oh
I
wow,
always say this, I always say this. There is you can never convince me that there's anything stronger than a bereaved parent that finds the strength to move
yeah.
forward in life. You know,
Oh
it,
wow,
we just have went through the unimaginable, and somehow, for me, through God, picked myself up and said, okay, I'm going to let life back in, and
yeah,
I'm going to do it, and I'm going to honor my child.
yeah,
And I hope that they're proud of me.
yeah.
I
Oh,
hope they
they will
are.
be. They will be. They are. Yeah, you could be for sure for that. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like you're taking your pain and putting it in purpose. So it's not nothing's. This is not being wasted. You're not. It's like you were kind
Yeah.
of saying. That okay. This is what happened. Then we're going to make the most of this. We're going to do something with this. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to help other people
Yeah.
by
Yeah.
telling these stories, just like you do. We're going to, you know, somebody else out there on the other end of this that's going to hear this is going to look at you and it's going to look at me and say, okay, those are two ladies that have been through the unimaginable, and here they are standing and telling their testimony and how God got them through. I can get through too. You
Yeah.
know, you never know who's listening and you never know who you're going to reach. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of this whole thing, right?
Yeah. For sure. And I will definitely testify that. I mean, loss was devastating. It was very devastating for a family, but it doesn't have to stay that way. You don't stay in that place just as
Right.
we're moving forward and choosing to see the bright side of life and allowing God to heal all those broken places and
Yeah,
painful
and I think,
painful
we
things.
get stuck. we get stuck in their death, their death, their death, right? That we forget to celebrate their life, their life, their life.
Okay.
You know, I don't want to
Oh,
just remember my son as just a snapshot of being on that motorcycle one day that caused his
yeah,
death. I want to
yeah.
remember him in kindergarten and in fifth grade and his
Okay.
first girlfriend.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
that's what I mean when I'm talking about good grief. We can
Okay.
go
Yeah,
down the rabbit holes of how they died and why and all that, but
yeah,
that's not healthy for us to do, you
yeah,
know.
yeah, yeah,
So I like to celebrate his life than to really just focus on that snapshot of his death, if that makes sense.
yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, yeah. That's really good. Oh, wow. Good. Well, I've sure enjoyed our time together, Tanya,
I have
and
enjoyed it too. Thank you
good.
so much. And I'm looking forward to having you on my podcast soon. Keep doing what
Yes,
you're
yes.
doing, May, because you're just a beautiful person. And I'm just so glad and honored that you asked me to come on to your podcast. And I just love everything that you're doing. You're such an inspiration to me and so many other people. So thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Oh, thank you. I'm honored, yeah, for you to say that. Thanks, and just glad to hear of everything that you're doing as well for others. And yeah, so your podcast, we'll make sure have your links to everything